Hi, and welcome to this lesson on Agile Procurement. It's all about value exchange. Now, we call this the art of the deal part 2 because part 1 was in leadership, where we covered the conflict styles and the Thomas Kilmann matrix. But what we want to talk about here is how can you create deals that you can stay in control of? And we're going to show you how you can do that. Now, to begin, you need to have 3 parts to every deal. There's an offer, there's an acceptance of that offer, and some kind of consideration, some kind of value exchange between the parties. One thing to understand is that you cannot exchange value that's already happened or been created in the past. So you cannot contract for something that's already been done, but you can contract for any liabilities of past work. So this means that if you were in a situation where you did work for someone and they did not pay you for that work, you can contract for the limitation of your seeking damages for not being paid, but you cannot contract for the doing of the work which is done. Hopefully that makes sense, but the key is it's all about a going concern. We're always looking to the future. You can't look behind you. It's all sunk cost. Now, when it comes to competitive markets, really competitive markets, you're going to end up with a spectrum of a deal for yourself and for the other party, which is inverted. In other words, what is good for you, a really good deal for you, is probably going to be a really bad deal for the other party. Now understand, this isn't necessarily the case for all kinds of markets, especially niche markets where there isn't really a lot of other groups who are competing, or for any kind of new market. In a new market scenario, this isn't as much the case, but most markets are mature enough that the exchange of value is pretty much on this spectrum of really good for you, bad for them, really good for them, bad for you. But here's the thing. In these kinds of competitive markets, you need to decide what you're going to go for when it comes to seeking a deal with another party. If you go for a really great deal, then oftentimes that's going to be too good to be true, because the reality is that if it's such a great deal for you and it's not great for the other party, then they have no reason to actually honor that deal. In fact, the other party has every reason to try to find a way out or to simply break the deal because it doesn't work for them. When it comes to a really good deal for you that's not such a good deal for them, that's going to result in an unstable partnership. You're not in control because it's so good for you that you don't want to give up any element of that deal. And for them, they're going to be looking for another opportunity that will allow them to get a fairer deal or something that's going to offer them more value in the future. So that's an unstable partnership and can oftentimes lead to a one-time deal. Now, if you have a fair deal, we call this situation a value partnership or value partners. And the reason why is because of the fact that if you're getting a good exchange and they're getting a good exchange, there's no reason to seek out another deal. You're right in the happy medium where you want to be. Now, a bad deal for you that's actually a pretty good deal for them is actually a deal where you're in more control. That is what's called a strategic partnership. Obviously, not all of your deals can be like this, so you want to select them strategically and think about which deals are actually worth being bad if you need to stay in control of them. Really good examples of this is working with platforms which have a monopoly hold on the market. So in some cases, people have complained about having to have a strategic partnership with Amazon.com or with Apple and its platform, as well as many others where we see, especially in technology, a lot of these strategic partnerships where it's a bad deal for one partner and it's a good deal for the other partner, and they're willing to suffer it because of the fact that they can have a stable relationship. So the summary of this are a couple of key principles. First, always think about the exchange of value and that you need to share that value if you're going to have a sustainable, controlled partnership. Second, go for a deal that's just better than fair. If it's just better than fair, you're going to still have a value partner scenario, but you're going to get a little bit more out of it. Also, remember that good deals are going to become one-time deals, and that's because of the fact that the other party has every reason to seek out another opportunity. They're not going to stay with you. Also, and this is probably the most important lesson, all of these deals come at some kind of cost. And the reality is that the better deal that you go for is going to cost you more and more and more in order to make that deal happen. So if you want to get a deal closed quickly so that it's still worth it to you in the long haul and you can continue to sustainably contract, you need to think about how much effort you're actually putting into deal making. Lastly, better deals have higher costs and risks. So if you understand the fact that every deal costs money and getting a really good deal is going to cost you a lot more money and add more risk, it's going to be a one-time deal, then oftentimes it's a lot better to go for a fair deal or maybe even a bad deal in order to keep the velocity of deals going. Now, if you don't have that many deals in your organization, maybe this doesn't apply to you as much. But at the same time, you need to be thinking about whether or not the contract that you do have that's so important to you is stable or not. So the last point here is that while there is no requirement in the negotiation process in order to provide clear, transparent information to the partner that you're negotiating with, once you strike a deal, there is a requirement that you operate in good faith, which means that you have to disclose risks. So if you take a really risky deal for yourself, you need to be clear that once you get into the execution of this deal, that you're showing all the risks to your partners. Otherwise, you can be held liable. In addition to that, there is always going to be some standard of care in your industry, and there's going to be common practices that you need to perform. So you can't skip out on those if you don't want to potentially be held liable if something goes wrong. So there aren't that many ways to hack this system, but there are many ways to do it wrong. And so if you want to understand a really good deal-making practice, always think about value exchange and think about how you can remain in control and minimize the cost of executing a deal.